A memorial for Prince Philip will be held later today at Westminster Abbey to celebrate his life and his service to the country.
Yeah, this also marks the first public event outside of her own residences that the Queen is expected to attend in person this year. They'll decide this morning whether or not that will happen.
Well, the author Nigel Cawthorne, who has written a book called I Know I Am Rude, Prince Philip's life in his own words, can tell us more about him and what's happening here. So he did know he was rude.
He said that. He said, "I know I'm rude, but it's fun."
Well, it's true. It's certainly true.
He was. I mean, I met him on a number of occasions, and he just came out with things. You know, he said to me once, "This climate warming is brilliant for the grouse. Brilliant, you know, it has them. It's fantastic. I don't know why everyone complains about it, because his theory being that in Norfolk there were now more grouse because the weather was
yes,
better
yes.
And things because of...
Typical of his sort of point of view of things. He was a very amusing man. I mean, he just added to the sort of gaiety of the nation, didn't he? And that, I think, was really what his role was.
Well, a lot of people would look and say, well, he hasn't got a role. He walks 2 steps behind the Queen or whatever. But that role was very well planned and visualised by him.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, he said his real role was not to get in the way, because he didn't actually do anything in his life. But I think he was one of those wonderful things. There's nothing more English than a foreigner trying to pretend to be an Englishman, because he considers himself Danish.
Yeah.
Didn't think of himself as British at all.
Where we would have all seen him in that way as the epitome of Britishness, really.
Well, yes, I think he probably read too much Bertie Wooster.
Ah, right. Yeah. So where do you get that personality from, that idea that he's a bit brusque, he's a bit irreverent?
Well, it was always part of his character. The quote we had here, I know I'm rude, it was written when he was 18. It was there from the beginning. And of course, he was always an outsider, having been kicked out with Greece when he was a child, and shuffled around, living in Paris and Germany before coming to the UK as a penniless refugee. Yeah. And he did rather well, didn't he?
Extraordinary story. Yes. So, Nigel Cawthorne, just talk to us about what it was that he wanted in his funeral that couldn't go ahead and will be brought, into action today at this memorial. I mean, we all can remember the images so stark of Her Majesty the Queen sitting alone due to the COVID restrictions. So that was one of the impacts of COVID on his funeral. But what were the things that we weren't able to see last year? Well,
I think that he would have wanted a kind of big celebration like this rather than the low-key thing that we had last year. Because he liked to be a big figure on the world stage, even though he couldn't affect anything or do anything in his life. He just liked to be part of the show.
And what do you think he would have made about Prince Andrew attending? It was the first time he's made a public appearance since he settled for £12 million in the sex assault civil case, despite never admitting any guilt. Public, obviously, not big fans of Prince Andrew. Do you think he'd have wanted his son there?
Well, it would be very mean of any of us not to have Prince Andrew there, despite what's happened, because it was his father, after all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot made of this, but you just still can't take it away, whatever his crime is. This was his father, and he's there to pay respect to his father that day, and maybe we should all just bear that in mind. But he'll get the headlines tomorrow.
Yeah, and there were some question marks anyway about whether the Sussexes would attend. I mean, the indication had been probably not, because there's this argument with the Home Office about not being able to privately pay for police protection. Do you think they'll appear today?
It doesn't appear so at all. It's a very difficult situation for the royal family all round, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Nigel, how do you think overall Prince Philip will be remembered?
Well, I think we will remember the gaffes and the foot in the mouth, won't we? And enjoy them for as long as we remember him.